Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on February 5th, 2022 at approximately 8:44 a.m. PST. Well, fortunately, things are changing for the better in my eyes. It does seem that people are starting to pull together a little better. There's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of danger involved. Danger as in struggle, conflict, that sort of thing. Okay, coming in. But I came back here to this lifetime at this point to pass on one simple message, and that is that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. But it is going to take a lot of work. We did not get to this state overnight. We can track the same patterning and check your own research. You know, unlike most people, this is not a question of my reading history books. This is a question, in my eyes, of my remembering them. Okay, and yes, I've double checked a number of things and had other people confirm what I have done and what I've remembered without going into the research myself. We go back to Rome, the same thing happened. The working poor or the working people, the working poor and the very poor, oftentimes homeless in all fairness, were treated like garbage. The people that had the money, were in positions of power, were treated really well. And there was a real struggle there until the revolt. Okay. Now, that eventually did happen, and do not get me wrong. The last thing on the planet we desire at this point is a civil war. Any sort of a war never, ever, ever brings peace. It brings quiet, but it does not bring peace. Okay, therefore, working within the system, and yes, the system is a shambles, but it can be fixed. Okay, it's kind of like a fixer-upper. You know, you buy a house, it's a wreck. Buy a vehicle, it's a wreck. You've got to rebuild it using parts that are already available. So when we talk about this system being shattered, that does not mean it cannot be rebuilt and stabilized. The overall concept of society is a good one. And we do have to have politicians in place to work out minor balances. The problem is, if those politicians are not making laws that apply to everybody, regardless of their social standing or any other differentiators, if those laws do not apply across the board, then what you've got is a fractured society, because a secondary society will evolve. Okay, what people call the underworld or whatever, it will evolve. However, the same applies. If that secondary society does not have laws that apply to everybody equally, regardless of their station, okay, then what you end up with is a secondary fracture, and this continues. Now, if you want to see the clear example of that, take a look at the Christian religion. Okay, it is a global religion. However, there are minor differences. Now, they talk about greed. They talk about, greed being evil, about love of money being evil, about all of this being evil. Okay, and yet, from my research on the internet, and check it out yourself, the Christian religion on the whole has 55% of the wealth. Okay, now the problem that I see here is they also have 45,000 denominations. Okay, which means their unified front that says let's have peace, let's work together, love each other as thyself, this sort of thing. Frankly, they're not following what they're talking about. Okay, if they've got 45,000 denominations, meaning minor differences between them, they are not a unified front. Now, the Jewish community, who everybody talks about, they're all bankers, etc. Newsflash, they've only got from what I gather, they've only got three denominations and only 1.5% of the finances on the planet. The Muslim community, on the other hand, has only two, and they've got about 3.5% of the wealth. Now, when you're taking a look at that, you get 55 plus 5, so 60% of the wealth is located in the coffers of the religious community. Now, if you think about that, okay, they're sitting there with that kind of finance on it. Now, and they talk about don't worship money. So if that's the case, why are so many churches up and running that are just absolutely in immaculate condition? Okay, they're not paying taxes from what I gather on the land in which the buildings are sitting. Okay, why do they have that kind of cash flow and we still have that number of people on the street that are starving? There's something seriously wrong here. Now, I will tell you, money is not the cure to starvation. Food is. Okay, but if they are working together, if they are working towards mankind's best interest, why is there such a disparity between the amount of money they have and the amount of pain and suffering that is being caused right around them? Not to mention the fracture lines in their own religion. Okay, now I personally only follow 3 laws. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And energy out, energy in. Now, these are the same laws that I promote quite literally with everybody I run into. Okay, from any walk of life, any race, I look at them all the same. Now, the reality behind it is this: this is still a good system, and the community in churches, the community in the temples, in the covens, is a sound operating system. Okay, but you have to realize that this has to shift gears where we are not looking at the major differences. Okay, from my standpoint, do I believe in God? Absolutely. Probably more than most. Of course, in my case, I've got my own reasons for it. Okay, do I believe in God? Do I believe in Christ? Absolutely. Now, whether or not people want to believe what position these two hold is not my concern. My concern is whether people get the message that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. There will be exceptions. Okay, there will absolutely be exceptions. But it is up to each and every one of us to focus on what we do have control over. And the only thing you really have control over is you. You can influence people, you can encourage them, absolutely. But it's time for people to put down the anger, to put down the guns, and to start looking at the reality that war does not bring peace. Okay, you want to take a look at the way that gets laid out? If you read Orson Welles, I believe it was Orson Welles, Animal Farm, okay, you'll get an idea of what happens when you take a government, turn it upside down, and replace it completely. It will rebuild into another government, usually in the same fashion. This is why, working with the governmental system in place, we can actually make this a better world. Yes, they make some laws that are absolutely bizarre. Okay, and they leave ones on the books that never should be there. Okay, and of course, I do have my own opinion on various laws and what have you. But I'm not here to try and convince you of the way to do it. I'm just here to ask you one question. Are you content with the way your world is right now, with the way your life is going? If you are, this is fantastic. Okay, if you're content with it, and you're following the 3 karmic laws, absolutely stay on track. Whatever religious beliefs you have, stick with them. Okay, as long as they fit those 3 karmic laws. Now, I will tell you, in every religious tome that I've looked at, They are all teaching essentially the same thing. Sad to say, a lot of what they teach is fear. Okay. Now, fear does not get very far. Okay. Fear is necessary to keep you alive. It's that fear of falling that stops children from, more often than not, falling downstairs. They'll take their tumbles, and it's going to take you some time to sort things out. But this is a question of working together. Find somebody that's done it properly and successfully, whatever it is you're aiming at doing. Talk to somebody that has done it successfully and turn it around, and follow their guidelines. Now, I was on a radio show last night. I was on Spaced Out Radio talking about aliens and that sort of thing. And yes, to me, they are a very real issue. And to many people out there, they are a very real group of people. But this is just a very big thank you. I do not know who made the comment. But a very big thank you. They came up with a brilliant idea. Now, this little book here, okay, Races of the World, that has 59 different races I've personally dealt with. Okay, including culture, appearance. I'm working on the pictures now. Okay, I've got an artist actually doing them. I'm about 2/3 of the way through. But with that in mind, the person on the show last night made a comment about whether or not I had a coloring book of this form. At this point, the answer is no. However, it is a priority. Once I get the pictures finished for this book, I will be turning to my artist and getting him to do the line drawings as a coloring book. Still with the information involved, but it will become a much more advantageous, a much more, shall we say, intriguing picture. Okay. And I'll have to work out the specifics on that. Okay, but will I be putting that together? The answer is yes. As a matter of fact, where is that? My little notepad that I keep here just to make sure that I stay on track. Okay, I keep this like I've mentioned. Okay, when you're dealing with things, I find the list works extremely well. Okay, now I just do it on a sheet of paper. I recommend 3 tasks. However you're trying to change your life. Where to start is right here, right now, right where you're standing. Okay, or sitting. You take a look at where your life is and ask yourself, what am I looking at that I'm not content with? For me, it usually boils down to the immediate office desk. Of course, I'm working in it, so it kind of works that way. But we have to get back to the idea that, taking care of each other, working as a unit, we can actually make this a better world. Okay, now there are some of you that will complain. There are many of you that look at it and go, it's not possible. But keep in mind, it was said it was impossible to cross the ocean. It was impossible to fly. It was impossible for the Scottish clans to unite. Okay, it was said that it was impossible to do a whole lot of things. Okay, at one point, people did not believe you could live past 30 years old. And more often than not, you didn't. But I found out one very important thing. Impossible is self-defeating. And in the subset of videos I've done, there's a subset called language. Okay. One of those is impossible. To explain why impossible, it's very self-defeating, and it can be turned around. Okay. The reality is things are only impossible until somebody figures out how to do them. Okay. And this is why I say the religious communities really have to pull their socks up and start realizing, number one, you're all worshiping, you're all teaching the same message. Now, if you're all teaching the same message, essentially, now there are exceptions, okay, but if you're teaching a message of peace and love and cooperation, Okay, you're teaching the same thing as most of the other religions out there. It's time to start acting on it. Okay, not by using guns, not by using harassment techniques, but by simply living that life. Now, I talk about the fact in my case that I will treat everybody equally the same, and I do. I run into a millionaire or into a really well-known superstar. I treat them the same way as I ever did. Now, for those of you that are my age, okay, and I'm 58, I'm sure you remember a music group called April Wine. Okay, well, I had the pleasure of working with them as a roadie, them and Harlequin. Now, I will tell you, April Wine, the people were absolutely phenomenal. Okay, they were very well off. Me, I was still working at, $6 an hour. Right, I was minimum wage. Actually, I was a little better than minimum wage at that point. But I talked to them just like I do people living on the street. To me, it doesn't make any difference. But the religious community has a tendency of going, if you don't believe in exactly what I believe in, I'm not dealing with you. This is not the teachings of peace and unity. This is the teachings of segregation and fear and disassociation, etc. Okay, it is time for the religious community to unite. You want an example, and this is probably going to ruffle feathers. Take a look at the truckers that are dealing with things. Now, I noticed a ripple effect here the other day. Okay, the truckers have united from every walk of life, every age bracket that's legally able to drive. Okay, they have united, even every religion. They have united under the same banner going, we need to make this change. Okay. Now, whether they're doing it the best way possible, probably not. But they are following the laws. Okay. And this is something that you got to give them a hats off to. But the ripple I noticed was that there was another post, okay, that was tied to it. And somebody posted an issue of if you think the truckers, if you don't get the message with the truckers, next it's going to be the trades coming. What this tells me is people have reached a point unilaterally of getting together and working towards bringing peace back to this planet, of bringing society back on track. It is time that people pay attention to this, because I'll tell you, the big groups are starting to be noticed. They're starting to make their point heard. Okay, from my standpoint, it really boils down to an issue of as long as people are working within the laws, as long as people are staying, are still following the karmic laws, which everything I'm seeing, the truckers have been doing. They may not be, they are obeying the traffic laws, and whoever it was, and obviously it was a tradesperson. If you think it makes an interesting picture, taking a look at hundreds of thousands. Actually, I don't know if it's hundreds of thousands or just 100,000, but certainly thousands upon thousands of truckers. If you think that it makes a scene or makes an image, wait till you see what happens if the trades get in. If the trades move on the same maneuver. Okay, this is the people standing up and saying we're no longer happy with the way the government is handling things, and they're doing it peacefully. And I strongly urge, if you're going to object, and by all means, if you don't agree with it, absolutely object. But stay within the boundaries of the law. Whether you agree with the law or not is not the relevant concern. Although there will come a point, and there usually does. I don't know if there will this time. But the last number of times this has happened, people started to complain, and then all of a sudden new laws were put in to stop that from happening. Well, the moment people's freedom gets taken away completely, okay, yes, somebody mentioned that when you start taking away freedom, it gets done bits and a piece at a time, and people don't usually notice it. By the time they do, it's too late. Well, it's only too late to make change once you're dead. And then it's not exactly too late so much as delayed until your next life. Okay, so yeah, it's going to take some time and things are going to get complicated. Okay, has it affected me personally? Certainly. But I've got a strange setup. I was reclusive a decade before everything went into the bin. Okay, so of course when all the laws started coming out saying don't go out, don't congregate, I'm like, I don't want to congregate with people anyway, and the only place I was going was the restaurant. Okay, so when they said stay home and drink warm liquids, well, staying home was convenient. I no longer had to explain to people why I didn't desire to go out. But I'm an oddity. Okay, as for warm liquid, that's why I've got the coffee. Okay, now the reality of it is the religious community have to realize that working together and taking care of the people that are not able to take care of themselves, and this is the same that applies to the wealthy. If you've got a surplus, without cutting into your own life, take a look at what you require, not just the bare minimums necessarily. Like, for instance, in my case, I require to keep a roof over my head comfortably. I require $2,500 a month. Okay. Now, I do set my goal for bringing in more than that. Last month, I set my goal at making 34. I broke it. I shattered the thing. Okay. And what I found, what I find is absolutely maintain your life. But it's when you've got the surplus that we start turning and taking care of the people that can't take them and take care of themselves. The religious community, in my opinion, is failing miserably at this in a lot of ways. And the reason I say this is because I have personally seen, and not every parent, not every church, not every temple does this, but the ones that do have got to stop it. If your temple is helping the poor, is helping the hungry, then absolutely continue doing so. This is not about you. As with everything else, if I'm telling you something, if I say something that applies to you, take it to heart. If it does not apply to you, then don't take it to heart. It's not yours. Okay. It's much like if you're looking at a market at somebody selling something and they go, "This is really good for you." Well, that's great. Here's coffee at a fantastic price. For me, this applies. I'll go and deal with it. If you don't like coffee, my guess is you're not going to go out and buy it. Okay. But the religious community has to get it straight that this is about world unity, world peace, not who believes in which word or in which description of God it is. It matters about how we treat each other. Okay, how we help each other. Okay, I listened. There was a blurb I caught. It was an old and I don't even know how it came up, but it was an old press conference from Ronald Reagan, who flat out said what he says. What I said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said what we in this world seems to need is a complete alien invasion to unify everybody and get us to forget about the petty differences. And ironically, that's sort of the case, but the aliens are not going to invade anyway. They don't have a point to it. As a matter of fact, they're actually forbidden to do so. However, we do have a common threat. Okay, and it is common around the world. Okay, that threat is amazingly enough, it's not the actual illness of COVID anymore. Okay, COVID is a real disease. It is a real deadly disease. It causes real quantifiable problems. But the real problem at this point is not the illness. It is the way it's being handled by the politicians, by the things that people are being told that they have to do, and other people are told, "Oh, you've got this particular reason why you don't have to." Well, it's kind of like trying to bail out a flooded basement using a colander. Good luck with it. Okay, it's not going to happen. But Do I understand the reasons for these things? Absolutely. The one thing that was done absolutely on the money, in my opinion, is the fact that keeping separated, keeping your distance, not gathering in massive groups, okay, was a wise move. Unfortunately, I've seen videos where politicians that are claiming you have to keep these separations, you've got to stay away from people. I've seen photographs, and no, they are not all photoshopped, so let's just not go there too terribly far. Oops, too late, I said it, therefore you can go there. But we're talking about live videos showing certain politicians in a different location instead of in their own country, gathering in great big groups where they haven't made that stipulation. Now, bad news. This is all one planet. Okay. And this is what I'm referring about. The laws and the stipulations they've got to apply to everybody. But the real pandemic we're dealing with at this point is apathy. As in, it's not my fault, it's somebody else's job to solve. And I've heard everything from it's the politicians, it's the elite's responsibility, it's the church's responsibility, all the way up to why don't the aliens solve it? Why doesn't God come down and straighten this mess out? Well, the reality is you created it. And since you created it, I don't mean you individually. I mean the collective. Okay, myself included. We let things happen and we let things progress to the point that now we have a massive problem. And it's going to take time to change the direction. It's going to cause chaos while we're doing it. To give you an example, take a bucket of water. Okay, take just a normal gallon bucket of water. Now, take a spoon and spin it around in one circle. Okay, you spin it around going clockwise. Okay, now it's going to get up to a nice flow, and you're going to find all the water moving in the same direction. When you desire to change that direction, it's going this way, just stop and go the other direction. Now you're going against the current. It causes chaos. But sooner or later, that chaos will calm out and will calm down again. And you'll get back to a smooth run. And this is what we're in the process of doing. This is why the truckers have gone out there and said, hey, we're no longer content. Okay. There are many groups that I've seen do this. Okay. I saw a group of Hell's Angels at one point, a motorcycle gang that 99% of you know about, where there was problems happening at the beach I was at. Okay, and it wasn't the Hell's Angels that were causing the problem, but they walked in, and the kids that were causing the problem. Now, who the kids were, I don't know. I don't even know what their income bracket was. I do know they were causing a problem for everybody around. And when the Hells Angels rolled in, they didn't do anything. Okay, they didn't do anything violent. They simply walked in, looked at the group, and said, we're going to get blamed for this. So, you're going to pack up and leave because this is not acceptable behavior. And we didn't come down here to have a complication. Well, the kids took a look at these bikers, packed up their gear. The bikers never did a thing wrong. They just told the kids, this is not acceptable, go away. That's all they did. And the kids packed up and left. The rest of the weekend went beautifully. Hell's Angels were at one end, we were parked in our spot, and there were a bunch of other people that were there. But I can honestly tell you, it was because of that one group of misunderstood individuals. They've got their past, okay? Truckers have their past. Everybody's got a past. But the reality is we can't do a thing about what was done in the past, okay? But it's absolutely imperative, whatever religious belief structure you follow, it's time to put the fear aside and start working together. Now, if you like the video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and please spread the message. Okay, that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourself and each other, and for pity's sake, stay positive.